If you've started planning a trip and are in the middle of figuring out how to visit Grand Teton National Park, then you've probably already discovered how tricky planning your trip to the Tetons can be. Hi, I'm James Ian, and I've written loads of guides and published several detailed itineraries for Grand Teton National Park. And in today's Grand Teton National Park Travel Guide episode, I'm going to share my 10 top tips for visiting Grand Teton National Park. I hope that these Grand Teton National Park tips will help give you guidance on how to navigate this amazing but a little bit complicated national park. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe right now. And if you're watching or listening somewhere else, follow my podcast to get the episodes as they come out. Following these tips will help you avoid common pitfalls and will help give you the peace of mind that you need, knowing that you're fully prepared and know exactly what to do when you're planning your trip there. Be sure to stay to the end, where I'll be sharing my number 1 tip for Grand Teton National Park. Let's get started.
Welcome to National Parks Collecting with James Ian. The national park expert. He is here to help you have the best national parks trips ever. Get tips, discover hidden gems, and learn all you need to know. This is your path to collecting national parks experiences, memories, and maybe even a stamp or two.
So, what are my top tips for Grand Teton National Park? My first tip is a common one that I have for most national parks actually, but it's especially important in Grand Teton, and that is to plan your visit early and make your reservations early. It's really important when you go to the national parks to start planning your trip well in advance, because accommodations within and near the park fill up fast, especially during the peak summer months. Reservations for lodges inside the park open 12 months in advance on a rolling basis, and reservations for the campgrounds inside the park open up 6 months in advance, also on a rolling basis. I recommend booking as early as possible, as soon as you know the dates for your trip. Another of my tips for Grand Teton National Park is to drive the 42-mile Scenic Loop. A lot of the highlights in the park are actually found along this loop, which is formed by the inner park road that runs pretty close to the mountains, and the outer road that runs roughly parallel to the inner road, but a little further away. On this drive, there's a series of pullouts and viewpoints, each presenting a slightly different angle of the amazing Teton Range and its valleys, and I highly recommend it. If you've got the time, don't rush through it. Take your time to stop, explore, snap plenty of photos. This loop is really one of the most scenic drives in the entire country. Some of the highlights are Jenny Lake, Signal Mountain, Oxbow Bend, Snake River Overlook, and Schwabacher Landing. I actually have an entire episode all about the drive, and you can click here to watch. It's worth noting that the park itself is open all year, but the inner Teton Road is closed to regular vehicular traffic in the winter. The park gets a lot of snow, and the road is groomed for cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. However, if you are visiting in winter, you can still drive the outer road, which is cleared because it's a highway. Another tip is to always pack and carry bear spray on the hikes, in the spring, summer, and fall especially. Grand Teton is in bear country. You may well encounter black and or brown or grizzly bears. Your safety, obviously, is incredibly important, so I think that bear spray is just a non-negotiable item in your packing list. Don't just pack it away though, make sure that you know how to use it before you go hiking, and when you're on your hikes, keep it readily accessible, not buried deep in your backpack. You're not going to have time to scramble around and find it if there's a bear right in front of you and you're feeling unsafe. While bear encounters are rare, your preparedness can really make a significant difference if it does happen. Remember, it's not just about your safety, obviously that's incredibly important, but it's also about respecting the wildlife and their habitat so that you're not endangering them and they're not endangering you. Another tip, again a common one for many or most of the parks, so not unique to Grand Teton, but helpful nonetheless, I think, is to attend a ranger-led program to learn more about the park when you're there. I think that one of the best ways to deepen your understanding of the park is to join a ranger-led program. And in fact, in my opinion, they're one of the things that really makes our national parks in the United States really special. These educational experiences range from talks on the park's geology to guided hikes that reveal the secrets of the local flora and fauna. Rangers are typically fountains of knowledge, and their stories add just a layer of appreciation to the landscape that you're exploring. One of my favorites in the park was when I went on a ranger-led hike to Moose Pond near Jenny Lake, and it was really cool. Actually, we saw moose, and that was really fun, but we learned a lot more about them as well from the ranger. You should always check the schedule upon arrival or online, and there's a link in the show notes below. Another tip for Grand Teton, and kind of a no-brainer, I'll admit, is to visit all of the best viewpoints while you're there, in the time that you have available, of course. Now, Grand Teton National Park is more than just the views. There's wildlife, there's a variety of activities and various things to do, and even surprisingly good places to drink and dine, but the views are definitely one of the main reasons to go there. It is a photographer's dream, especially during the golden hours when the early morning and the late afternoon sun accentuate the profiles of the Tetons and add this sort of colorful light display as well. So make sure that you visit the classic viewpoints such as Oxbow Bend, Schwabacher Landing, and the view of Jackson Lake from Signal Mountain. They each offers a different perspective on the park, and I recommend seeing all of them if you can. In fact, I've devoted an entire episode to the best views in the park, and you can click here to watch it if you're watching this on YouTube. Note when you're thinking about visiting the viewpoints and seeing the views that the sun rises in the opposite direction from the Tetons. So for sunrise, say after the sun has actually risen, and you'll see the mountains bathed in this golden glow of the first rays of sun, and that's sort of the appeal. And then at sunset, the sun sets behind the mountains, creating this silhouette with the brightly colored sky above. So again, I recommend staying a little after the sun has set, because that's when the colors get reflected onto the clouds and create this really beautiful display of pinks and oranges. We are halfway through already. So far, we've looked at 5 tips for visiting Grand Teton National Park. We have 5 more left. Before we look at them, if you're watching this on my @National Parks Collecting YouTube channel and you haven't already, please like and subscribe below. It really helps. All right, what's next? Another tip, and part of my secret sauce for a great trip to the national parks in general, is to go hiking early in the morning. I know many people like to sleep in, but in my humble opinion, a national parks vacation is always better if you don't sleep in and that you get up early. Hitting the trails early has multiple rewards. This is when wildlife is most active and you're more likely to spot animals. Trails like the ones to Taggart Lake and the Phelps Lake Loop offer excellent opportunities for wildlife viewing. Remember, if you do encounter animals, to keep a safe distance and always stay on the marked trails to help preserve the delicate ecosystem and ensure your safety and the safety of the environment. If you go hiking first thing in the morning or early in the morning, you'll encounter fewer people and you'll get to enjoy the beauty of the Tetons, if not completely by yourself, certainly with a lot fewer other people around. I really like that. Plus, on a very practical level, you can find a parking spot straight away without spending precious hours of your vacation driving around waiting for someone to leave, which is not one of my favorite things to do in the national parks, and easily avoided if you get there very early. So I recommend getting up early, do the activities, spend your day there, and then wind up by late afternoon. You'll have an early evening and go to bed early. Another tip for Grand Teton, and one that a surprising number of people don't do actually, is to get out on the water. There's a string of lakes along the base of the Teton Ranges. There's Phelps Lake, Taggart Lake, Bradley Lake, Jenny Lake, String Lake, Lee Lake, and Jackson Lake. And there's sort of like this little necklace or this little line of jewels along the base of the mountains. And in the summer months, the lakes there become a hub of activity. Not all of them, but some of them. So you can hike to and around them, But you can also get out on the water of Jenny Lake and Jackson Lake. So Jenny Lake, they have a boat tour. You can do a scenic tour, or you can get the hiker's shuttle that goes from one side to the other to a trailhead that starts some of the main hikes, like the one to Cascade Canyon and Hidden Falls. You can also rent kayaks so that you can explore at your own pace. I think paddling in these waters just offers a really nice perspective and a little bit of a different pace. You can go to some of the quiet coves and the hidden shorelines that you'll often see different wildlife there. The other lake that has a lot of water activities is Jackson Lake, and there's a couple of different places where you can hire a boat. You can take your own if you have a boat. You can hire canoes and kayaks. There's Coulter Bay is a major point, Signal Mountain as well, and there's a couple of others. So I really encourage you when you're there to get out on the water. You can also go swimming in or paddling on String Lake and Lee Lake, and they're also really beautiful places to hang out and enjoy the views and have a really fun activity at the same time. Another Grand Teton tip is to be prepared for changing weather conditions. The weather in Grand Teton can be unpredictable, so you might have sunny skies and then it turns to rain very, very quickly, or sometimes even snow in the shoulder seasons, which end late and start early. Summer is quite short in Grand Teton. This can happen very quickly, so I always recommend dressing in layers, packing layers with you, pack some waterproof gear, just in case things change very quickly. Also, it can get very sunny, so always pack plenty of water, sunscreen, and a hat to protect against the elements, regardless of the season. What's my biggest tip for planning a trip to Grand Teton National Park? So far, we've looked at 8 tips for the park. We have 2 more left. Stay to the end to hear my top tip in just a moment. But first, my second last tip, but a really important one, is to have a detailed and flexible plan. You'll be getting a sense by now that there is a lot that goes into planning a trip to Grand Teton National Park. It isn't the biggest park in the country, but it's narrow and long, so it can take a surprising amount of time to get around to see and experience the highlights. It's also extremely popular, and the summer season is short. It snows a lot in winter, and winter is long, so it can be crowded in these short summer months particularly. I've often seen people waiting around in their car for a parking spot to open up as I'm getting back in my car. You don't want that to be you if you can avoid it. So timing is really important, but it can be really difficult to know exactly when to get to particular places. You also want to be careful of the light. You don't want to see a mountain completely silhouetted or washed out by the sun. You want to be at each view at the right time of day to really appreciate them. The number one thing that people ask me about actually is how to put everything together, all of these highlights, into an actual itinerary. They don't want to spend their time waiting around for a parking spot. They don't want to spend time competing with crowds on the trails. Some of them are traveling with their whole family or with a group of friends, and they're kind of stressing about how to keep everybody happy. It's a lot, right? That's why I created really detailed itineraries for Grand Teton that are designed to take away that stress by considering the best times to be in each place. There are options for a 1-day, 2-day, and 3-day trips. They provide you with an hour-by-hour plan, but there are also various options that are built in for flexibility. Not everyone likes to do the same things and has the same mobility or the energy, so I've included different activity levels and interests, so it's not one size fits all, and there's some flexibility and adaptability so that you can use it no matter what your interests are. Let's take a quick look. They start with a park overview and a map to give you a general idea of what the park is like, and then they go into practical details, including tips for visiting, important information, hike descriptions and maps, driving descriptions and maps, and each has a really detailed daily schedule that has options built in, as I mentioned, so that you have choices, and so do people that you're traveling with. The goal of these itineraries is to remove the stress of planning and to allow you to fully enjoy your visit. They're designed to ensure that you don't miss out on any of the park's amazing things and to give you the knowledge that you need to navigate the park efficiently and effectively. By using one of the itineraries, you'll save time on planning and ensure that you don't miss out on the park's highlights. They'll take away the overwhelm and they'll give you all the information that you need in one spot so you don't need to worry about missing out on the highlights of the park or stress about how to put everything together into a schedule that makes sense for you and your family. Just follow the links in the show notes below. Now, as promised, what's my number one tip for Grand Teton National Park? When visiting Grand Teton, to really get the most out of the park, I really recommend, if you got the time, to explore the less crowded areas of the park. Of course, if you only have a short time, you're best focusing on the main highlights. But if you can manage it, I recommend staying a little bit longer and seeing more parts of the park because it really has a lot to offer. It's also a great way to beat the crowds, even in summer, and to connect with nature on the deeper level that not being surrounded by a million other people can give. One such place is the Lawrence S. Rockefeller Preserve. The trail here winds through different habitats and it leads to Phelps Lake, which is totally amazing and beautiful. The preserve is not just a place to hike, it's also just an opportunity to experience the quieter side of Grand Teton. The visitors center there is also really cool. There are hands-on multi-sensory exhibits that are really great for kids, so I recommend it. If you want help planning your trip, check the links in the description box below. There's a bunch of planning and booking resources that you can use to plan and book your trip. And, of course, keep watching my videos to get even more help so that you can have the best national park vacation ever. And if you want to get notified about the next episode, subscribe and click below.